I'm begging you, don't." But the farmer defied everyone and shocked the whole territory. The wind over New Horizon territory never stopped. It carried red dust, dry heat, and the distant hum of machines that kept the planet alive. On this world, people still wore boots and hats, still said morning like it mattered, and still respected a hard worker. But above their heads, orbital mirrors controlled the sunlight, and silent satellites watched the land like quiet eyes. Elias Turner lived far from the nearest town. His farm sat near the edge of the terraform line, where the soil was thin, the water pipes often failed, and the sky sometimes flashed with strange green storms. Most settlers refused to build so close to the frontier. They said the land was cursed. They said the old mining rigs under the ground still leaked dangerous energy. Elias did not believe in curses. He believed in work. Every morning he woke before the sun lamps brightened. He checked his hydro tanks, cleaned the filter screens, and walked the fields with a handheld scanner. The scanner beeped when the soil needed nutrients. Elias listened, adjusted the feed lines, and kept moving. He was not rich. But his farm stayed alive, and in New Horizon territory that mattered more than fancy words. In the small town of Dry Creek, people talked about Elias like he was a rumor. Some called him brave, some called him dumb, most called him stubborn. He did not argue. He kept his head down and his hands busy. That evening the sky changed. Elias noticed it while he was tightening a bolt on his irrigation pump. The air felt heavy, like the planet was holding its breath. The horizon shimmered and a low vibration rolled through the ground. He stood up slowly. A streak of silver fire cut across the sky. At first he thought it was a meteor, but then the streak curved, controlled, struggling, and smoke poured from its side. "A ship," Elias muttered. The object grew bigger fast, then disappeared behind the low hills west of his fields. A few seconds later, the ground shook. Dust jumped off the fence posts. A deep boom echoed across the flats, followed by a high, thin hiss. Elias stared toward the hills. His farm was isolated, but not safe from falling metal. If that ship had crashed near his water wells, it could poison the land. He did not waste time. He went into his shed and grabbed 3 things: a coil rope, a small plasma cutter, and his old long-range radio. Then he swung his leg onto his hover bike and pushed the throttle. The bike floated a few feet off the ground and shot forward, kicking dust behind it. Elias rode with his eyes narrowed, tracking the smoke rising like a dark flag. When he reached the hill's crest, he saw the crash site. A sleek shuttle lay half buried in the dirt, tilted on its side. Its hull was dented and scorched. Sparks jumped from broken panels. The air smelled like burned circuits and hot metal. Elias slowed and circled carefully. He had seen wrecks before: bandits, smugglers, unlucky traders. Most were empty by the time he arrived. This one was not. The shuttle's side door twitched. It opened with a grinding sound. A ramp lowered unevenly, then stopped. A figure stepped out. It was a woman. She wore a dark uniform, but it was not a local marshal uniform. The cloth looked expensive and reinforced. Her boots were built for rough ground, and her belt held a compact tool kit instead of a weapon. Her hair was tied back tight. Her face looked pale under the planet's harsh light. She held one arm close to her ribs as if it hurt, but her eyes were sharp, alert, and focused. She looked around fast, then spotted Elias. "Stop!" she called, voice rough from dust and smoke. "Don't come closer." Elias lifted his hands slightly, showing he was not aiming anything. "This is my land," he said. "You just fell out of the sky onto it." The woman's jaw tightened. She glanced behind her at the shuttle as if expecting it to explode. "I didn't plan to crash," she said. "I had no choice." Elias took a cautious step forward anyway. "You alone?" she hesitated. "Yes." Elias looked at the shuttle again. "That ship's leaking fuel. If it melts into the soil, it'll poison my fields." "I know," she said. "I'll help you seal it, but first." Her eyes lifted to the sky. Elias followed her gaze. Far away, above the flat horizon, a dark shape hovered like a silent bird. It was too high to be seen clearly, but the sunlight flashed off its underside in a way that made Elias uneasy. The woman's face tightened with real fear. "They're here," she whispered. Elias felt a cold line run through his chest. "Who's here?" She turned back to him and spoke fast. "I need shelter. I need a place off-grid. No networks, no town scanners, no public signals." Elias frowned. "That depends on what kind of trouble you're bringing." The woman looked like she wanted to argue, but she swallowed it. Her voice dropped. "My name is Mara Voss," she said. "I'm not a criminal, but someone powerful wants me found." Elias studied her face, searching for lies. He saw exhaustion, pain, and something else, determination, like she had already decided she would not give up. The dark shape in the sky moved slightly, drifting closer. Elias reached for his radio. "If you're being hunted, the marshals should know." Mara's eyes widened. She took a step toward him, holding her injured side. "No," she said quickly. "Please don't. The marshals here don't control this. They'll do what they're told. They'll hand me over to keep the territory safe." "Safe from what?" Elias asked. Mara looked at the ground, then back up. "From a war they don't even understand." Elias did not like vague words. On the frontier, vague words were how people got trapped. He took a slow breath. "Tell me plain." Mara looked toward the sky again. That hovering shape was larger now, like a hawk circling. "They're called the Meridian Authority," she said. "They don't wear badges in this territory, but they act like they own it. They want a device I have." Elias raised an eyebrow. "A device?" Mara's hand moved to the collar of her uniform. She pulled out a small metal capsule on a chain. It was no bigger than a thumb. Its surface reflected light in shifting colors like oil on water. Elias felt his skin prickle. Something about it seemed too advanced. "Too clean for this dusty land." "What is it?" he asked. Mara's voice shook slightly. "It's a key. It controls a terraforming core." Elias stared. Terraforming cores were not small tools. They were massive machines, buried deep under the ground, controlling water systems, atmospheric balance, and soil chemistry. Without them, New Horizon would become dead rock. His mind worked fast. "If that's true, why would the Meridian Authority be chasing you out here?" "Because this territory is a test," Mara said. "They want the core to fail. Then they can claim the land, relocate the people, and sell the region to mining companies." Elias' throat tightened. He had lived on this land for 12 years. He had buried pipes by hand. He had repaired storm shields with duct tape and hope. He had watched neighbors lose farms to drought and storms. And now someone wanted to wipe the territory clean like it was just a number on a map. Elias looked at Mara again. "Why come to me?" Mara's lips pressed together, then she spoke the truth. "Because you're alone," she said. "Your farm is off the grid, your signals don't reach town unless you boost them, and because you're close to the dead zone." Elias frowned. The dead zone was an old mining region where normal sensors glitched. Nobody went there unless they wanted to disappear. Mara's voice softened. "I tried other farms," she admitted. "I asked for help, and they said no. They begged me to leave." Her eyes shone with frustration, not tears. She looked angry at herself for needing anyone. Then she said the words that hung in the air like a prayer. "I'm begging you," she said quietly. Don't turn me away." Elias heard something above the wind, a distant whine. Engines, the dark shape in the sky began to descend. Elias knew that sound. Drone patrol craft, not local, too smooth, too controlled. Mara stepped closer to him, her voice urgent now. "They can track the capsule if I activate it," she said, "but they'll search this area anyway. If they find me, they'll take it, and they'll erase anyone who helped." Elias' jaw clenched. He hated threats. He hated bullies. He hated the idea of someone erasing a farmer's life like it meant nothing. He looked back toward his fields. If he helped her, the territory could burn with trouble. If he refused, he could keep his farm safe for a while. But what if the Meridian Authority did what she said? What if they made the core fail and forced everyone out? That would kill more than his fields. It would kill the whole future. Elias made his choice in one hard breath. He pointed at his hover bike. "Get on." Mara froze. "What?" Elias didn't repeat himself with kindness. "Now that craft is coming." Mara climbed onto the back seat, gripping the bike's side rail with one hand and holding her ribs with the other. Elias started the engine. The hover bike rose and darted away from the crash site, slicing through dust like a fast shadow. Behind them, the patrol craft dipped lower. A scanning beam swept across the crash site, searching. Elias turned sharply toward a narrow ravine he knew well. The ravine led to old irrigation tunnels dug by early settlers. He had used them for water lines. He could use them now for hiding. Mara leaned close so he could hear her over the wind. "You don't know what you're doing," she said, voice tight with fear. Elias stared ahead, eyes hard. "Maybe not," he replied. "But I know this, nobody owns my land." The bike vanished into the ravine just as the scanning beam swept over the hills. The territory's sky remained wide and silent, but something had changed. A farmer had just defied the safe choice. And the whole territory was about to feel the shock of it. The hover bike rushed through the narrow ravine, its engines humming low to avoid attention. Dust rose behind Elias and Mara like a fading trail. Above them, the sky remained wide and silent, but Elias knew the patrol craft was searching. He did not look back. The ravine curved sharply, leading toward an old irrigation tunnel hidden between rocks. Most settlers had forgotten about it. Elias had not. Years ago, when storms destroyed his main water line, he had rebuilt the tunnel himself, turning it into a hidden path beneath the land. "Hold tight," he said without turning his head. Mara tightened her grip as the bike dipped suddenly and entered the tunnel. Darkness swallowed them, broken only by small lights along the bike's frame. The air felt cooler here, damp with the smell of soil and old metal. Behind them, a faint scanning beam passed over the ravine entrance but did not follow. Elias slowed the bike once they were deep inside. "They won't detect us here," he said calmly. Mara exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since the crash. "You built this?" she asked. "Part of it," Elias replied. "The rest is older than me." He guided the bike through several turns until a metal door appeared ahead. He pressed a small control panel, and the door slid open with a heavy rumble. On the other side waited his underground barn. Soft lights turned on automatically as they entered. Rows of equipment lined the walls, spare engines, seed containers, old farming drones, and storage crates stacked neatly. The air felt safe, hidden from the outside world. Elias parked the bike and stepped off. "You're safe here for now," he said. Mara climbed down slowly, wincing slightly as she moved. "You're injured," Elias noticed. "It's nothing serious," she said quickly, but her pale face suggested otherwise. Elias walked toward a cabinet and pulled out a small medical kit. "Sit," he said. She hesitated as if unused to being told what to do. Then she sat on a nearby crate. Elias worked quietly, cleaning and sealing the wound near her ribs. His movements were careful but efficient. "You've done this before," she said. "Farming teaches you many things," he answered simply. After a moment of silence, she spoke again. "You didn't have to help me," she said softly. Elias shrugged. "Maybe not, but I made my choice." Above them, faint vibrations echoed through the ground. The patrol craft was still searching. Mara looked toward the ceiling. "They won't give up easily." Elias closed the medical kit and leaned against the table. "Then tell me everything," he said. "No half stories." Mara nodded slowly. She removed the small metal capsule from her collar and placed it carefully on the table. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the barn lights. "This is a control key," she said. "It connects to a terraforming core hidden under this territory. Whoever holds it can adjust environmental systems, water cycles, climate stability, soil balance." Elias frowned. "And the Meridian Authority wants control?" "Yes," she said. "They believe frontier worlds should belong to powerful organizations, not independent settlers. If they control the terraforming core, they can make farming impossible. People will be forced to leave." Elias felt anger rise quietly inside him. "They would destroy people's lives just to take land," he said. Mara looked at him carefully. "You understand now why I couldn't let them have it." Outside, the patrol craft's engines faded slightly. Perhaps it had moved farther away. Elias walked toward a control panel on the wall and activated old shielding systems. A low hum filled the room. "This place blocks most scans," he explained. "Not perfect, but good enough." Mara watched him with new respect. "You're not just a farmer," she said. "I am," he replied, "but a farmer survives by adapting." They sat quietly for a moment. The tension slowly settled into something calmer. Then Elias' long-range radio beeped. He frowned and answered. "Elias," came a familiar voice, Old Man Carter from Dry Creek Town. "You seeing those strange ships?" "Yes," Elias said carefully. "People are worried," Carter continued. "Council marshals are heading toward your sector. They say someone crashed near your land." Mara stiffened. Elias kept his voice steady. "I saw the crash, haven't checked it yet." "That's not like you," Carter said suspiciously. Elias smiled faintly. "Guess I'm getting slower." Carter chuckled, but worry remained in his tone. "Be careful, something big is happening." The radio clicked off. Mara looked at him. "You lied." "Yes," Elias said simply. She hesitated before asking why. Elias thought for a moment before answering. "Because sometimes rules protect people," he said slowly, "and sometimes rules protect the wrong ones." Before she could respond, a loud vibration shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elias moved quickly to a small screen connected to an external camera. Outside, 3 armored vehicles approached his farmhouse. The marshals, he said. Mara stood quickly. They'll search everything. Not down here, Elias said, unless they know where to look. He turned to her. Stay quiet. Above ground, Boots stepped across the wooden porch. A knock sounded heavy and official. Elias climbed the ladder toward the surface exit. Before leaving, he looked back at Mara. Trust me, he said. She nodded silently. Elias emerged into the farmhouse and opened the door. 3 marshals stood outside, wearing dust coats and scanning equipment. Evening, Elias, one said. We need to ask you a few questions. Elias leaned casually against the doorframe. Long day, what's going on? Ship crashed nearby, the marshal said. We're checking all farms. Elias nodded slowly. Haven't seen anyone. The marshal studied him carefully. Mind if we take a look around? Elias hesitated just long enough to seem natural. Go ahead, he said. They searched the farmhouse, the barn, and the fields. Elias followed calmly, answering questions without offering extra information. Finally, the lead marshal returned to him. If you see anything unusual, he said, report it immediately. Those ships in orbit belong to dangerous people. Elias met his eyes. Understood. The marshals left, their vehicles disappearing into the dust. Elias waited until their engines faded completely before returning underground. Mara stood near the table, tense. They didn't find me, she said quietly. No, Elias replied, but they'll come back if they suspect something. She looked at him with determination. I don't want your home destroyed because of me. Elias crossed his arms. Too late to worry about that. For the first time, she smiled slightly. Outside, night began to fall. The sky darkened and distant stars appeared above the frontier. But new lights joined them, ships moving silently in orbit. The territory was slowly becoming surrounded. And Elias realized that hiding forever would not be enough. Soon, he would have to do something far more dangerous. Night settled over New Horizon territory like a heavy blanket. The stars above shone bright, but new lights moved between them, ships that did not belong to the settlers. Inside the underground barn, Elias and Mara watched a small monitor showing the sky. Several large vessels floated in orbit, silent and patient. They did not attack. They waited. That's worse, Elias said quietly. Mara nodded. They're tightening control. They want people to feel afraid before they act. Elias crossed his arms, thinking deeply. He had spent years solving farming problems, broken pumps, sudden storms, failing crops, but this was different. This was not a broken machine. This was power. We can't hide forever, he said finally. Mara looked at him carefully. I know. She placed the metal capsule on the table again, its soft glow reflected in her eyes. The resistance group I told you about, she continued. They're beyond the Black Ridge Mountains. If I reach them, we can secure the terraforming core permanently. Elias frowned. That's far. Patrols will be everywhere. Yes, she said, which means we need to move before they fully lock down the territory. Elias walked slowly around the room. His boots echoed against the metal floor. What happens if they get this? He asked, pointing to the capsule. Mara hesitated before answering. They could shut down water systems, change temperature patterns, force drought or storms. Farming would collapse within months. Elias felt a heavy weight settle inside him. That was not just a threat to him, it was a threat to every farmer, every family, every child growing up under this sky. Then we don't let them take it, he said. Mara watched him closely. You understand what that means? They won't stop chasing us. Elias gave a small, calm smile. I've lived through worse than bad weather. She almost laughed. Suddenly, the monitor beeped. A new signal appeared, several drones moving toward his land. Mara stood quickly. They're searching again. Elias moved to the control panel and activated deeper shielding systems. Lights dimmed and a low vibration filled the air. Outside, faint shadows passed over the ground. The drones moved slowly, scanning every inch. Mara held her breath. Minutes felt like hours. The drones hovered, then turned away, flying toward another farm. She released a long sigh. They're getting closer, she said. Elias nodded. Which means we leave tonight. Mara looked surprised. Tonight. Before sunrise, he corrected. Darkness helps us. He began gathering supplies, water packs, energy bars, tools, spare batteries. His movements were calm and practiced. You've planned escapes before, she observed. A farmer always has backup plans, he said simply. As they prepared, Elias' radio suddenly crackled. He froze. Only emergency broadcasts used that frequency. He turned it on. A voice filled the room, the Territory Council's leader. All settlers remain calm, the voice said. External forces are conducting inspections. Stay in your homes and cooperate. Myra shook her head. Inspections, that means control. Elias turned the radio off. They're scaring people into obedience, he said. He finished packing and looked at Mara. You ready? She took a deep breath. Yes. They left through the underground tunnel, riding the hover bike silently toward the open plains. The night air felt cold and alive. Above them, ships moved slowly like watching eyes. Elias avoided main roads, guiding the bike through narrow paths only locals knew. Dust trails faded quickly behind them. For a while, everything stayed quiet. Then a bright light flashed in the distance. A patrol vehicle crossed their path. Elias slowed instantly and turned sharply into a dry riverbed. Mara held tight as the bike descended into darkness. They're everywhere, she whispered. Good thing I know this land better than they do, Elias replied. They continued for hours, stopping only once to check directions. The Black Ridge Mountains rose ahead, dark shapes against the stars. Mara looked hopeful. Once we reach the pass, the resistance will meet us. Before Elias could answer, a loud hum filled the air. A drone dropped from above, scanning lights sweeping across the ground. They found us, Mara said. Elias accelerated. The drone followed, sending a warning signal. Another appeared ahead, blocking the path. Elias turned sharply again, racing toward a narrow canyon. Energy beams flashed nearby, striking the ground but not hitting them. Mara gripped the seat tightly. They're trying to slow us, not destroy us. They want you alive, Elias said. The canyon walls closed around them. The drone struggled to follow inside the tight space. Elias guided the bike through twisting paths, rocks and shadows flashing past. Finally, the drone's sound faded behind them. They slowed, breathing hard. Myra looked at him with admiration. You drive like a smuggler. Elias smiled slightly. I drive like someone who doesn't like losing. As dawn began to approach, they reached the edge of the mountains. A small signal light blinked from the rocks ahead, 3 short flashes, 1 long. Mara smiled. That's them. Figures emerged from hiding, men and women wearing travel gear, their faces serious but welcoming. You made it, one said to Mara. Elias stepped off the bike, watching carefully. The leader of the group nodded respectfully toward him. You're the farmer who helped her, she said. We heard rumors. Elias shrugged. Just doing what needed to be done. Before anyone could say more, a deep rumble shook the ground. They looked up. Enemy ships descended toward the mountains, engines glowing against the rising sun. They tracked us anyway, Mara said. The resistance fighters prepared their equipment quickly. Elias realized something important in that moment. Running was no longer enough. The territory's future would be decided here. And the farmer who only wanted to protect his land now stood at the center of a fight much bigger than himself. The morning sun slowly rose behind the Black Ridge Mountains, painting the sky with soft orange light. But the beauty of the sunrise could not hide the danger approaching from above. Enemy ships descended toward the rocky terrain, their engines glowing bright like falling stars. The air vibrated with deep mechanical sounds that echoed across the canyon. Elias stood beside the hover bike, watching carefully. Around him, the resistance fighters prepared quickly. Some checked equipment while others activated small defensive drones hidden among the rocks. Myra stepped forward, her expression serious but calm. They found us faster than expected, she said quietly. The resistance leader, a woman named Renaa, nodded. We knew they would come. They don't give up easily. Elias looked at the ships again. What's the plan? Renaa glanced at him with respect. Protect the key and activate the safe transfer. Once the terraforming control moves into our network, they cannot use it against the territory. Mara held the small capsule tightly. It will take time, she said, and they won't wait peacefully. Elias felt the weight of the moment settle in his chest. He had never planned to stand in the middle of a conflict like this. He only wanted to protect his farm. But now he understood that protecting one farm meant protecting the entire frontier. A loud voice echoed from one of the descending ships. This is the Meridian Authority, it announced. Surrender the control key immediately. Resistance will only cause unnecessary trouble. The resistance fighters remained silent. Elias narrowed his eyes. He did not like the calm tone of that voice. It sounded too confident, too certain that fear would win. Mara turned to him. You can leave now if you want, she said gently. You've done enough. Elias shook his head. I didn't come this far to walk away, he replied. She smiled slightly, understanding. The ships lowered closer, releasing several armored drones that landed across the canyon floor. Their scanning lights moved slowly, searching for movement. Renaa gave quiet instructions. Resistance fighters spread out among rocks, hiding but ready. Myra walked toward a small control station built into the mountain wall. The transfer system waited there, an old relay tower connected to underground networks. She placed the capsule into a circular slot. Lights turned on. "Transfer starting," she said. A low hum filled the air. Immediately, the enemy drones began moving faster. "They detected the signal," someone shouted. Energy beams struck nearby rocks, sending dust into the air. The resistance fighters activated defensive shields, blocking the attacks without harming anyone. Elias watched carefully. He was not trained for battles, but he understood strategy. The drones moved in patterns, covering escape routes. "They're hurting us," he said. Renaa looked at him. "Toward where?" He pointed toward a narrow canyon entrance. "They want us trapped," he said. Renaa quickly changed positions, ordering fighters to spread wider. The drones adjusted their movements, confused by the sudden shift. Mara focused on the transfer system. 30% complete, she said. Another announcement echoed from the enemy ship. "You are making a mistake," the voice said. "This territory cannot survive without strong leadership." Elias laughed quietly. "Funny," he said. "We've survived just fine without them." The battle continued, but it remained controlled. The resistance fighters avoided direct attacks, focusing only on defense and protection. Suddenly, a large drone landed directly in front of Elias. Its scanning light locked onto him. He froze for a moment. "Unregistered civilian," the drone announced. "Step away from the restricted device." Elias raised his hand slowly. "No," he said calmly. The drone paused, calculating. Before it could react, Elias moved quickly, throwing a small metal tool toward its sensor panel. The impact disrupted its scanning light, giving nearby fighters enough time to disable its power source safely. Mara glanced back at him, surprised. "You're learning fast," she said. Elias smiled slightly. "Farming teaches quick thinking." The transfer system reached 50%. Energy waves spread through the ground, sending small vibrations across the canyon. Above, the enemy ships moved closer. Renaa spoke urgently. "We don't have much time." Elias looked around. The resistance fighters were holding their ground, but the pressure increased every minute. He noticed something, a high rock formation overlooking the canyon. If he could draw the drones' attention there, it would give Mara more time. Without saying anything, he climbed onto the hover bike. "What are you doing?" Mara called. "Buying time," he answered. Before she could stop him, he accelerated toward the open canyon. The bike roared loudly, attracting the drones immediately. Several turned and followed him. Elias drove fast, weaving between rocks and kicking up dust. The drones chased him, focusing their scans on his movement instead of the transfer station. Behind him, Mara continued working. 70%, she said. Elias felt adrenaline rush through him. He was not.